Hello, everyone. Welcome to WJOP Open Studio. We're on WJOP LP Newburyport FM 96.3 and also simulcasting on Channel 9. Today, I am delighted to welcome Jane Ring Frank to WJOP Open Studio. She is the artistic director since 2011 of North Shore choral group Cantemus. She has a very distinguished record as a choral conductor, starting out at California State University at Long Beach, including work with opera communities in Los Angeles and Long Beach. After moving to Boston in 1991, Jane conducted at Harvard for a number of years and later founded the highly regarded group Boston Secession. She's also a resident scholar in women's studies at Brandeis and artistic director of the Concord Women's Chorus. And because apparently and amazingly she still has time and energy left over, she's also the Minister of Music and Worship Arts at First Congregational Church in Winchester. Today, she's here to tell us about Cantemus' upcoming December concert, evocatively titled Star-Made Shadows, which will have a performance here in Newburyport on Sunday, December 8th at 4 p.m. at St. Paul's, as well as performances on Saturday, December 7th in Beverly and Sunday, December 15th at Swampscott. Jane, welcome, and thank you so much for coming to WJOP Open Studios.
It's my pleasure. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Mary.
Happy to have you here, Jane. I've been to Cantemus concerts before, and the descriptor on your little postcard advertising this concert seems spot on to me. Small chorus, great sound. So I'm eager to learn more about the upcoming program, but I am always curious about how people find their way onto their pathways in life. So first off, how did you discover that you wanted to become a choral conductor? Were you always drawn to singing and choral music, or did this passion find you at some later date in life, and if so, how?
The amazing part is I know exactly when the passion bit.
You do?
I do. I was a pianist as a child. I practiced a lot. I was very dedicated.
Yeah.
More interested in the piano than I was in playing with friends. And my mother would, in fact, force me out to play with friends, which is a funny other part of my life. But when my brother, who was 6 years older, sang with a very famous choral conductor in Los Angeles named Paul Solomonovich, who's no longer with us. And when I was 12, I went to his concert at Loyola Marymount University, and I turned to my mother that day during the concert and said, "I'm going to do that."
Wow! You can't identify the exact moment.
It was a thunderbolt.
Wow, that
and
is
it was something
amazing.
about. It wasn't about just the sound. It was about the relationship between Maestro Solomonovich and his singers, and I was completely compelled by that relationship.
So it was really the connection, not just the music, but the connection. Wow, that's really interesting. It leads me to want to ask you, what is it that you love about choral conducting?
I think it is this opportunity to create a shared language and a shared experience. The music, the result of rehearsing and processing and thinking about music is really secondary for me. It's lovely that there's a result, but I am completely in love with the process and the ability to be with a room full of people of diverse personalities and backgrounds, and to create a common path and a common goal. Then the result becomes meaningful, not because of the quality of it in and of itself, but because of what's happened in that relationship and in that connection. And I think it's magic, really.
So it's live and vibrant.
It is.
And in the moment, and of the moment.
I love it.
Wow, that's well put. And that leads me to the next thing I'm curious about, wanting to ask you about, because one of the pleasures I've found personally in attending a Cantemus concert is just watching you conduct. Because even though you have your back to the audience most of the time, it's fun to watch your dynamism and the physicality of the way that you conduct. You have a connection with the music and the singers, and it appears to me as though the music is kind of my analogy would be like a current that's flowing through you. Or the other way around, maybe it starts with you and flows outwards. And I wonder if that's your experience physically, and if that's part of what you think makes you such an effective choral conductor.
Well, I think conducting of any kind is not about... It's so funny. I think our job is to take what's on that page and bring it to life and kind of move our own selves out of the way. And as a result of that, I feel like I'm a conduit. Current is the exact right word, because it always starts with what's on the page, not with me. And then, is there a way to, of course I bring my own subjectivity to it, we all do, but is there a way then to make that a kind of corporate experience that reflects to the audience, and the audience catches that same corporate experience?
Right. Interesting. Wow. Well, certainly the audience catches them. When I've been there, it's it's powerful. It's like tangible. It's very powerful. Well, your program on December sounds so intriguing to me, and I was curious to find out, how do you go about creating a concert program? How far ahead of time, for example, did you start planning your December program? And what criteria do you use to select pieces that will cohere together and create a gratifying and satisfying experience for the audience, well, and the singers as well, for that matter?
Well, I think I usually give myself about 2 years in advance to think about these things. There are two things at play when I'm thinking about a program. 3, actually. One is that I'm always looking for a kind of cornerstone piece that I think the chorus can learn from, can actually improve with, can, go farther along their journey with me, that we can move together and grow together on, and will satisfy the audience and move the audience in the same way. So those two things are always at play. But then it's a ton of research for me, and I'm really interested. I love the canon. I love the known repertoire, but I also like to find accompanying pieces that are less familiar, so that there's kind of growth and growing and learning, educating all in the same way. Find that great canonical piece, or something that I know that the audience will really, really relate to, and maybe some other pieces that speak in conversation with that piece, but might provide a little bit different view.
Yeah, interesting. Well, that you start a long time ahead of time.
I do. I start thinking about it and really researching.
But hearing the criteria that you are including when you think about it, it's complex, and so I can understand that. Well, your featured piece, then, for Star-Made Shadows is Vivaldis Magnificat, which is a lesser-known piece than the very well-known Gloria that is so often performed this time of year. So, Jane, what made you select this piece, and what can you tell us about the composer's intent for the work and some of the circumstances under which it was composed?
So, Vivaldi was writing in this kind of extraordinary circumstance basically for the orphanages in Venice. The Ospedale della Pietà in particular was where he was stationed. And why it's extraordinary is because it's one of the few places where young girls, were actually getting musical education, and he was writing for them and for their voices.
Interesting.
And if they showed any inclination to musical ability, imagine a girl being educated by Vivaldi himself. This is an extraordinary circumstance. So I'm really dedicated to his works and to this odd situation he found himself in. He was a priest. He wanted the maestro de coro position at the Ospedale. He never got it because of backroom politics, kind of, the same circumstances we all find ourselves in as musicians.
Imagine Vivaldi not being able to get the job he wanted.
Can't get the job he wants because,
It puts everything in perspective for the rest of us.
It does. I mean, I think it's just so human, right?
It is, absolutely.
And so when the maestro was ill, he finally got to compose freely for these children, and found himself writing in a way that was for whatever forces were ahead of him. He had a boys' chorus, he had a girls' chorus, he could put them together, he had older students. Whatever forces and instrumentalists he had was what he was writing for. And that's why the Gloria, the Magnificat, these larger pieces are in version after version, because he would adapt year to year with whatever was he had in front of him. So the Gloria we all know and we love. I mean, I love that piece. So
me too.
I think I can say that freely. But the Magnificat is a funny little piece. It is, each movement is relatively short. Some of them so short that they're over in a blink. But the piece, each movement has incredible distinct character Some of it is very kind of rich and sexy. Some of it is just fast and light and dancey. And then some of it is kind of lyrical and emotional. And I think that he, again, found himself with these young people and, in a way, was using it as an education piece.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
And it's extraordinary. It has a kind of extraordinary emotional depth. And even though each movement is so brief. And I have been in love with it for a long time, and I thought, this is the good
Now's
moment.
your chance.
This is a good moment to bring it out for Christmas.
Excellent. Well, that's a fascinating backstory, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the backstory because it often appears to me as though we become often very accustomed to listening to classical music through a secular and a historical lens that makes it somewhat divorced from the sacred expression with which it was composed and with which it's infused by the composer. So I was hoping, because I read some things in your background material about the Canticle of Mary and that text and the gospel story that gives mystery and meaning to the words. So I was hoping you could share that with us, Jane.
So I think that the Magnificat, the Canticle of Mary, which is taken from the Gospel of Luke, there is something so special about it because it's really a social justice canticle. So Mary greets Elizabeth, who is pregnant with John the Baptist, and who leaps in her womb when she sees Mary, and Elizabeth praises Mary, and Mary responds. But what she responds with is not only, behold the handmaiden of the Lord, which we all know is the beginning of the canticle, but she talks about this incredible upheaval that God is going to bring the proud to be lowly, to feed the hungry. It becomes a kind of universal social justice message.
Interesting.
And I think there is something in that is something we can all relate to.
Right, absolutely.
And the biblical part, less about the praise part. And I can give you a couple of the lines. He hath put down the mighty from their seat, hath exalted the humble and meek.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the whole upending of the rules as we know them. And I think that I have always related to that text as something really beautiful, and particularly this time of year, and I think maybe in the world in which we live.
Absolutely.
Right?
Thank you for that, because it just gives a different depth and texture as one listens. So that was really well put. Thank you. I love the idea that it's a really timeless social justice text, a little revolutionary.
Right, exactly.
Well, what can you tell us about, there's another Vivaldi work that you're performing, the Laudate Dominum.
Right.
And you described it as little and mighty, which was a phrase that really captivated my attention. So I'm going to have to ask you. I'm so curious. Tell us what's little and mighty about it simultaneously.
So I think one of the really meaningful things about Vivaldi as a composer was his utter economy of style. So he could relay an idea. So when I was being a little bit flippant about the fact that the Magnificat movements are very short, what is really remarkable about that is that within these small pieces, the Laudate Dominum is a very small piece, meaning that it's short. It's probably at most 3 minutes, maybe 2 minutes.
That is short.
But what is really what I love about the piece is that he never writes one note too many, but he doesn't write too few. The idea being that he understood how to develop a theme in an economical and tight way, and I think it shows, and it creates a kind of perfect excitement,
which is mighty.
Yes, it is mighty, and it's a really upbeat. It's a really beautiful, upbeat, elegant thing that he did. And I think that this was one of the talents, was to know exactly his limits.
Right.
Compositionally.
Right. Wonderful. Well, you've got, for contrast, you've got some jazz carols on the program as well. So what can you tell us about these?
I'm from Los Angeles originally. I grew up in Los Angeles, where a lot of the kind of jazz vocal singing It was really a part of my college experience. And I also did some professional background singing when I was a young woman.
Uh-huh.
And one of the great arrangers was Phil Mattson.
Uh-huh.
These carols are the carols we know, Lo How Roses Are Blooming, O Come, Emmanuel, Here We Come, a Carolyn. And the harmonies are rich, they are really complex, and really beautiful.
Wow, okay. You come back.
Unexpected.
That's very intriguing. You come back another day and tell us about being a background singer.
Yeah, I will. Another day.
Okay. You're also performing Ola Gielhos, Tundra, and Across the Vast Eternal Sky. And I'm not familiar with those particular selections by him, but I do know his Ubi Caritas,
beautiful,
which is transcendently beautiful. Right. So I wanted to find out, are these Gielho pieces similar in style?
Yes. These, I will say that they're... Tundra was the first thing that Gielho wrote that was of what I would call this wash of color, harmonic color. I think that he has, that he wrote them very specifically for string quartet and piano, and he takes the last line of Tundra, which is Across the Vast Eternal Sky, and Tundra was written for women's voices. The piece was so popular that he asked Silvestri, the poet, to write a piece that could come right out of Tundra. They're not long pieces, but they feel like suspended time. Long chords, long chordal structure, beautiful string parts, and I think they're kind of heavenly.
Oh, I'll bet they are, if they're anything like Ubi Caritas. Heavenly is the right adjective there, absolutely. Well, and your final piece, and it's a signature piece for Cantemus, is Sure on a Shining Night by Morton Lordson and the poet James Agee. And I have heard your chorus perform this before, and I can promise everyone that it will make your heart expand, and you will probably jump up from your seat and applaud. That's what people did when I was there. I'm curious to find out, how did this piece come to be, the Cantemus closer?
And this is a great question. I'm reflecting back. Of course, the title, Star Made Shadows, comes right out of James Agee's text for Sure on the Shining Night. Again, when I first brought this piece to the group back in 2011, it was hard for the group, and it became kind of a way. It became a training piece, something I could really use to help the group and to teach, for us to learn our shared language together. But then it caught. Talk about the passion bite. I think that the group clearly loved the piece. I love the piece. And it kind of, sometimes pieces take a life of their own, and this one did just that.
Oh, interesting.
Audience, all of the, it was alchemically right. And
alchemically right.
I don't know why that
Those
is.
moments in life are rare but precious.
Exactly.
It was mighty.
Absolutely.
Well, finally, Jane, if people want to learn more about the concerts, the program, or Cantemus in general, how can they get more information and perhaps most importantly, tickets?
So tickets are available. Go to cantemus.org, and there are flyers all around the North Shore and ticket outlets around the North Shore. But there you'll find all the information that you need for tickets and all our concert dates.
Cantemus.org, everybody. And I've seen the flyers everywhere from Market Basket to the Natural Grocer.
Excellent. Thank you. Good.
Jane, I want to thank you. It's been fun and fascinating to talk to you. And I really appreciate your coming to WJOP Open Studio. And we will have to think about having you come on the morning show sometime to talk about that background singing. I bet there's plenty of good stories there. And I want to give everybody a reminder that Open Studios, as well as all other WJOP broadcasts, including the morning show from Fridays, are streamed online after the show has aired. For radio programs, go to ncmhub.org and click on the cloud icon in the upper right-hand corner. And for TV programs, go to ncmhub.org and click on the YouTube icon, also in the upper right-hand corner of the page. Jane, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And good luck with the concert. It sounds wonderful.
Great. Thanks so much.